Hello and welcome. There is a new order from Judge Bev today, March 10, 2025. We will be reviewing it together. I haven't read it yet. I don't even know what it's titled, so welcome. And we're going to go to the first page, which is over here. And we're going to zoom in. It reads Commonwealth versus Karen Reed, order regarding media protocol and coverage. The guarantee of a, quote, public trial, end quote, grounded in the democratic values of public accountability and openness, serves as a, quote, safeguard against attempts to employ our courts as instruments of prosecution, end quote. And she cites a case law. Continuing, today a trial is made public through live broadcast from registered media members, quote, who are regularly engaged in the reporting and publishing of news or information about matters of public interest, end quote. And she cites a rule. Continuing, quote, while maximum freedom must be allowed, the press is carrying on this important function in a democratic society. Its exercise must necessarily be subject to the maintenance of absolute fairness in the judicial process, end quote. She cites the case law Estes versus State of Texas. It continues, in order to ensure the safety and well-being of all participants in the defendant's right to a fair trial by an impartial jury, conformity with Supreme Judicial Court Rule 119, and the dignity of the proceedings, the court enters the following orders regarding media and journalist coverage of the above referenced case. And in the footnote as number 1, and it's a link to the mass.gov website, registered news media under SJC rule. We're going to go to the next page. And we're going to zoom in. Okay, number 1, media representatives, reporters, journalists, and anyone else claiming status as a journalist under Rule 119 shall be required to sign in every day in a manner prescribed by the clerk of court and to show proof of registration with the Supreme Judicial Court Public Information Office. There shall be a designated seating area for media. Any journalist registered with the Supreme Judicial Court under Rule 19 seeking access to broadcast or photographic or audio material for broadcast, streaming, or posting on the internet must coordinate their request and access through the designated media pool representative in accordance with Rule 119 2F. Interesting. It just sounds like she's regulating the media's access to these hearings even more. And she's citing the Supreme Court Rule 119. But I don't know, it's Judge Bev. It's got to be nefarious, right? Like that's my immediate assumption. Like she's up to no good. Okay, continuing. Number 2, filming, streaming, photographing, recording, transmission, or broadcast of any court proceedings shall occur only through pool arrangements in accordance with Rule 119.2F. The court shall permit one stationary, mechanically silent television broadcast or streaming camera and one still photography camera during the trial. Pool cameras and camera operators shall be in place prior to the start of the session and shall not be dismantled while the court is in session. The camera operator and other members of the media pool shall not interrupt court proceedings with technical problems. Okay. She's like saying, you guys better have your equipment set up before trial even begins. Because you're not going to be able to interrupt the court proceedings. And I actually agree with that. I don't think the court proceedings should be interrupted at all whatsoever due to technical issues with cameras or what have you. That should all be well taken care of before the trial or the hearing even begins. Continuing. Number 3, Filming, streaming, photographing, recording, transmission, or broadcast of any kind shall not take place until the court is called into session, when the judge enters the courtroom and takes the bench, and shall immediately cease, be shut off or deactivated during court recesses and upon adjournment each day. Interesting, guys. Like, if you've been following the case so far, like if you've listened to all of the hearings so far in the Karen Reed case, you know that whenever they're at a break or whenever they're at a recess, like Judge Bev needs to leave the courtroom for some reason, the cameras are still rolling. They just zoom into the ceiling fan, right? Like how many memes were made because of that ceiling fan in the courtroom. So that's what I know about the Karen Reed case. All the hearings, all the trials. It it's always like there's a break. Whenever there's a break, whenever there's a court recess, the cameras keep rolling and they don't stop. The audio stops. All we hear is white noise until they turn the audio back on. But the cameras keep rolling. They just zoom into a different part of the courtroom, whether it be the ceiling fan or like the flag of Massachusetts, right? So it seems like in this order, she is changing what the reporters, what the media are permitted to do in the courtroom. I'm going to read number 3 again. Filming, streaming, photographing, recording, transmission, or broadcast of any kind shall not take place until the court is called into session, when the judge enters the courtroom and takes the bench, and shall immediately cease, and in parentheses, be shut off or deactivated during court recesses and upon adjournment each day. So I'm saying, like, she doesn't even want the cameras rolling. She doesn't want the cameras rolling when there's a break, when there's a recess. She doesn't want anything. Why? Like, what's the point? Why this sudden squeezing of control over the media? Like, what is that about? And again, it's Judge Bev, and I don't trust it by default. Continuing. Number 4, except as permitted in number 1 and 2 above, no person is permitted to film, photograph, record, and stream, transmit, or broadcast court proceedings at any time through photographic or electronic recording devices, including still or video cameras, cell phones, smartphones, tablets, laptops, audio recording or transmitting devices, or any other electronic device with communication capabilities, except as permitted in numbers 1 and 2. No person is permitted to use any electronic device with communication capabilities to submit updates to social media during the proceedings. You guys see number 4? So if we go back to number 1 and 2, again, this is Judge Bev. So, and if you don't know Judge Bev by now, you have to look closely at everything she's saying. Because again, she's usually up to no good. So number 1 reads, media representatives, reporters, journalists, and anyone else claiming status as a journalist under Rule 119. So you see, guys, Judge Bev isn't even willing to recognize you as a journalist unless you are like registered as a journalist under Massachusetts Rule 119. It's like you're not a journalist unless you meet that standard to Judge Bev. And you must also be required to sign in every day in a manner prescribed by the clerk. So Judge Bev wants to keep track of every single journalist who is documenting this case, every single journalist who shows up to the courtroom documenting this case. She wants them all to sign in. And why would that be, guys? It's so that she can trace the information back to them more efficiently. Like if information gets out, she'll be able to look at who signed in and better determine who put out that information based on this order. And then number 2, filming, streaming, photographing, recording, transmission or broadcast of any court proceedings shall occur only through pool arrangements in accordance with Rule 119 2F. The court shall permit one stationary mechanically silent television broadcast. So I'm just saying, like, number 4 pertains to number 1 and 2, and number 4 is, to me, it's not sounding good. Except as permitted in numbers 1 and 2 above, no person is permitted to film, photograph, record, and stream, transmit, or broadcast court proceedings at any time through photographic or electronic recording devices, including still or video cameras, cell phones, smartphones, tablets, laptops, audio recordings or transmitting devices, or any other electronic device with communication capabilities, except as permitted in number 1 and 2. No person is permitted to use any electronic device with communication capabilities to submit updates to social media during the proceedings. So she's cracking down on anyone who may be in the courtroom reporting about the court proceedings while they're there to social media. Like, people in the courtroom with their cell phones, which, by the way, I've been to the Superior Court and I've been to the District Court in Dedham, and the court officers are paying attention to anybody using their phones. Like, you're not supposed to be on your phone when when a hearing is in session. So I'm just saying, like, they're already the court officers are already, like, regularly checking that. So why does this need to be in order? To me, the court officers are doing their jobs, like, uh, I don't get it. Uh, it sounds like more control, and it sounds like because it's an order, now it's in black and white, it's in the black and white letter of the law, her order is enforceable. And so anyone who goes against it, any independent journalist who goes against it, she will have the authority to reprimand them, to punish them based on this order. Again, it's Judge Bev, so I immediately don't trust it. That's my default reaction, my default feeling. It's coming from her, and by default, it's not to be trusted. As I've stated in many previous videos, Judge Bev has no integrity. She has no credibility. But this, to me, seems to be her way of being, it's a strategy of being able to punish anybody who doesn't follow this order. Okay, I'm going to continue to number 5. In accordance with Rule 119 2B, no person is permitted to record, transmit, or broadcast sidebar conferences between the judge and counsel, conferences between counsel, and conferences between counsel and the defendant at any time. The pool camera operator shall pause or disengage the audio component of the pool cameras during sidebar conferences. All microphones shall be shut off during the sidebar conferences. The pool camera operator shall not manipulate the camera's zoom and focus so as to reveal accidentally or otherwise documents of attorneys, the clerk of the court, or the judge, or any other documents not admitted as trial exhibits or not published to the jury. Number 6, media requests for inspection or copies of trial exhibits shall be made on a form or in a manner prescribed by the clerk of the court. The clerk's office shall make reasonable efforts to accommodate such requests in a timely manner, subject to court operations. Original trial exhibits shall remain in the custody or under the control of the clerk at all times. Yeah, again, it sounds like she's cracking down on the way in which the information from the hearings is used, the way in which the information is published to the public. She's cracking down on it. This is an order enforcing new rules on anyone who thinks they can just record, stream, and update the online community about anything pertaining to these hearings or these court proceedings. Number 7, in accordance with Rule 119.2b, the court prohibits the filming or photographing of any juror or prospective juror at any time, including during court proceedings and any court-conducted view. No person shall contact, follow, interview, or communicate in any way with a juror prior to the discharge of the jury or otherwise harass or tamper with a juror. Interesting. Interesting that Judge Bev wants to write this in the order, but she doesn't care when Lieutenant Fanning is documented of having been there during the first trial by Hank Brennan himself. Hank Brennan himself admits that Lieutenant Fanning, Massachusetts State Police, Lieutenant Fanning, who worked through Michael Morrissey's office, Lieutenant Fanning was there during the first trial. He was there at the Superior Court, and according to Hank Brennan, Lieutenant Fanning was there to assist the other troopers, the other state troopers and law enforcement, in crowd control surrounding the Superior Courthouse, surrounding the outside of the Superior Courthouse. But nobody saw Lieutenant Fanning outside the Superior Courthouse during the first trial. Nobody saw Lieutenant Fanning outside the Superior Courthouse. But again, according to Hank Brennan, Lieutenant Fanning was there, but he wasn't outside. And according to all of us following this case, he must have been inside. And where was he? Because he was out of camera view. And it was exposed, it was revealed that he was in fact controlling the jury. He was in fact dictating what the jury could and could not do during the first trial. But Judge Bev wants to put this order here, and she wants to make it so that no person shall contact, follow, interview, or communicate in any way with the juror prior to the discharge of the jury or otherwise harass or tamper with the juror. Like, where was that? Where was that when Lieutenant Fanning was there at the first trial dictating what the foreman could and could not write on those jury notes? Continuing, guys, I don't trust her. I don't trust this order. Again, she's going to use it to legally punish anybody. Because if you guys don't know, you should know that once a judge makes an order, it's enforceable. Continuing. Number 8, jury impanelment shall commence on April 1st, 2025 at 9:30 a.m. in the first session courtroom in Norfolk Superior Court. The court will permit a single pool film camera and a single pool still camera for the first portion of the impanelment process, placing the defendant at bar, introducing the case, and preliminary instructions to jurors. The cameras shall be focused only on the judge, clerk, defendant, and attorneys, and shall not film or photograph any prospective juror. When the court recesses after the introduction of the case, all cameras shall be turned off during the remainder of the impanelment process. Media representatives, journalists, and the public at large may observe but shall not record or broadcast the subsequent individual voir dire proceedings. No cameras or recording devices shall be permitted on successive days of impanelment. And I don't necessarily disagree with number 8, because every juror's identity should be protected, especially in a high-profile case like this. You know, to me, it should always be the juror's right to have their identity revealed, and it shouldn't be because somebody in the media leaked it. You know, so I'm just saying, like, especially for a high-profile case, juror safety is one of my concerns. Continuing, number 9, all persons subject to this order, including all media representatives, reporters, and journalists, are prohibited from interviewing or attempting to interview any person in the courtroom or courthouse. No person shall interview with intent to relay, transmit, or distribute publicly the contents of that interview any other person in the courtroom or courthouse. The court prohibits any person from taking photographs, filming, recording, or broadcasting events occurring outside the courtroom in other areas of the courthouse. I'm going to read number 9 again, guys. All persons subject to this order, including all media representatives, reporters, and journalists, are prohibited from interviewing or attempting to interview any person in the courtroom or courthouse. No person shall interview with intent to relay, transmit, or distribute publicly the contents of that interview any other person in the courtroom or courthouse. The court prohibits any person from taking photographs, filming, recording, or broadcasting events occurring outside the courtroom and other areas of the courthouse. Very interesting, guys, because if you guys remember Canton Confidential, and Canton Confidential sucks. They really suck in their misrepresentation of this case. There were a few Canton Confidentials I provided commentary about earlier on when I was following this case, but I had to stop because they continued to misrepresent the facts of this case, and just like Court TV, Canton Confidential, to me, can't be trusted. They've lost their credibility, but Canton Confidential had Sue O'Connell showing up at the courtroom during the first trial. Sue O'Connell was there every single day during the first trial. So what's Canton Confidential going to do? Is Sue O'Connell still going to be permitted to do what she did for the second trial? Like, is she going to be permitted to do all of that, all of what she did during the first trial with the second trial? Because according to this order, according to Judge Bev, she won't be permitted to do that. Canton Confidential will not be permitted to interview her based on this order. You know, like, it seems to me, a bit of an overreach. It's a bit of government overreach on Judge Bev's part. And Judge Bev is an extension of the government. She's, in fact, enforcing government rules as a judge. And some of those rules are not government rules at all. They're just Judge Bev's rules. But this one in particular, I feel like, that's going to impact a lot of news channels that do exactly that. No person shall interview with intent to relay, transmit, or distribute publicly the contents of that interview any other person in the courtroom or courthouse. I mean, it would be different if, she's referring to the jury interviews. That's separate. But this line right here is enforceable. The court prohibits any person from taking photographs, filming, recording, or broadcasting events occurring outside the courtroom in any other areas of the courthouse. Like, I distinctly remember interviews taking place inside of the Superior Court while other hearings were going on. I'm just saying, I distinctly remember Sue O'Connell providing commentary, providing her feedback, her own perspectives of what was going on inside the courtroom, whether it was about the jury members or whether it was about the court proceedings or the prosecution or the defense or Judge Bev. Sue O'Connell went in person to those hearings. She was permitted to. I'm assuming she had a press pass to do so. They let her in a lot more than they let the supporters in. But this order will directly impact her. And if it doesn't impact her, guys, then that will be yet more proof that there is special treatment for certain news outlets and not others. Continuing to number 10, court officers or court personnel are authorized by this order to secure any area which they deem necessary or appropriate to ensure the proper operation of court proceedings and the well-being and personal privacy of jurors. Okay, continuing number 11. A violation of any of the provisions of this order may constitute contempt of court. Court officers may eject or exclude entry to any person believed to have violated any provision of this order. Yeah, so again, guys, it's enforceable. It's signed Beverly J. Canoni, March 10, 2025. Um, yeah, so um, I don't like it. I don't like it because it's an order, and we can clearly see that there are specific rules here which pertain to specific things. But how much you want to bet that Judge Bev is going to use this to her, like in her favor? How much you want to bet she's going to use those court officers and use this order in and of itself to exclude certain journalists like Aidan Kearney from being there? That she will use any little thing he does that goes against this order to keep him from returning to the courtroom, right? I'm just saying, as an example, I could see her using this as a weapon against journalists like him, or him in particular, because he's like the biggest threat, based on how the prosecution, based on how the members of law enforcement have treated Aiden throughout this entire ordeal, throughout this entire case. Based on how they've all treated him, he is clearly a threat to them. If he wasn't a threat to them, they wouldn't have attempted to throw him under the bus as much as they have. They wouldn't have attempted to lock him up and press all these charges and bring all these cases to him as much as they have. It's not like Aiden is a threatening person. It's not like he's a threatening force of nature to them. It's simply like, I mean that like physically. They're not afraid of him. They know he's not gonna hurt them. They just don't like the information that he's shedding light on. They don't like the information that Aiden's providing to the court, to the public about the court, about this whole thing, about this whole cover up. And a lot of what was in there was like already pre-existing rules, like she's like almost like saying, as a reminder, this is a rule already, this is a law already. So if you go against this, if you go against this law, you're going against this order too, and I will make sure that there's a consequence. Like, that's what this order screams to me. She wants more control of the information. She wants more control of what the public is able to see from this case. And again, we know she doesn't care about the jury. I care about the jury. I care about jury safety. But Judge Bev doesn't care about the jury. She only cares about them as a means to an end, as a tool to bring forth a result she needs, a result she wants. And she clearly can't stand Alan Jackson. She clearly can't stand Karen Reed, right? So I'm just saying this order in and of itself is going to be weaponized. It's locked and loaded. It's ready to be weaponized against anyone Judge Bev doesn't want back in her courtroom. It's enforceable. But again, how much you want to bet it's not going to apply to certain media outlets like Canton Confidential or Court TV, because those two, especially, those two media outlets, especially, even Law and Order, has at times misrepresented this case with their clickbaity thumbnails that, don't depict what's actually going on. John O'Keefe is just a dead cop boyfriend to Law and Order. To Law and Crime, not Law and Order, Law and Crime. Their platform. So I'm just saying, like, Court TV, Law and Crime, and Canton Confidential, they've all demonstrated that they will misrepresent the facts of this case for sensationalism and for clicks, right? So how much you want to bet this order isn't going to apply to them necessarily? It's going to apply to the independent journalists, the independent YouTubers who go there and show up to document what's happening. It's going to apply to people like me who show up when I can to the standouts and to the court proceedings. It's going to apply to the people who are looking at this case and analyzing it the way it should be, objectively, following the evidence and following the facts, and calling the bullshit out when it needs to be called out. Those are the people this order is going to apply to. It's not going to apply to the mainstream outlets. It's not going to apply to the major multi-million-dollar YouTube channels that make money off of this case through sensationalism. And again, clickbaity thumbnails. Anyway, I will leave the link to the order in the description below. Thank you all for watching.